Hi, everyone. Welcome to Deliberately Intentional with me, Remi. Today's title is Disloyalty and Betrayal, unpacking your role or lack of in friendships and marriages. Whether we like it or not, one of the key things that affects us the most is when a friend betrays us or is disloyal. Now, what do we term as that? If you find your friend gossiping or they're backstabbing you, which means that they've said something to your face and they're saying something else behind your back, or they've shared some intimate secrets of yours and they've taken that and they've, spread it. Or they're gaslighting you, telling you that they care about you and that they're really your best friend and they're telling everyone else that you're not worth very much. So many different things like this happen. Or when there's let's get to the core one that happens a lot with girls, when a friend takes your man, because that happens a lot too. Whether we like it or not, each of these things has an impact on us. But before we get into the impact, let's talk about betrayal as well. Betrayal and disloyalty run hand in hand, mainly because there's an expectation. When you're in a relationship or you're in a friendship, you expect certain things from these friends. And when they do it, that's when we get those two results. You feel betrayed and you feel like you had a disloyal friend. But sometimes, whether you like it or not, these people have actually shown these traits to you. You've probably just not paid any attention. And here's one of the things that I want us to discuss. Are you at fault for overlooking certain things about your friend? Do you now take blame in the fact that there was something that you saw and you should have known it was going to happen to you eventually? That's a question. Whether you like it or not, sometimes you will feel like you need to blame yourself. And I think I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't look through thoroughly. You should, but I don't think that you should blame yourself and think that it was your fault. You probably didn't think that they would do it to you. Granted, now that it's happened, it will scar you a little bit, but I don't want you to use that scar to now let it stop you from making better friendships or even moving on into better relationships. Now, I have examples I've had too. I'm going to talk about the guy that I dated that scammed me because it's been a topic that I've been talking about off and on, but I feel like it's time to bring it up now. If I had allowed that person, before I get into the story, the reason why I want you to pay good attention to it is because if I had allowed that relationship to scar me, I wouldn't be in the relationship that I'm in now. There are lessons you need to take from everything that happens to you, and you're going to learn one from this. So let's say I was about 25, because this was about maybe 2-3 years before I met my husband. So I was probably about 25. And I'd met the guy in a club. I think it was either Nelly's in, honestly, it's a long time ago. So I'm not even going to try to remember the name of the club. Let's just say I met the guy in a club. He was cool, well-built, African-American, my height. I think he was a bodybuilder. He said it was a bodybuilder. I'm just going to call him Sean because I tend not to. I'm one of those people, if you notice, I do not name drop. I hate when people do that and send it, like, yo, did you know this person? Did you know that person? So I tend to avoid dropping people's names, but I'm going to call him Sean. Sean was from Atlanta and he had just come and yes, he was tossing around a decent amount of money. I'm not impressed by the money, but I'm like, okay, at least I won't have to spend my money on you. That was what I was looking for. I was like, I don't want to date anybody that can't seemingly hold their own. I can hold my own. If you can hold your own, great. We had gone on a couple of dates. He didn't have a place because, of course, he was from Atlanta. But he had come down a couple of times, said it was really cool, liked me. I didn't know what he did with the rest of his days. So here are the key points. I didn't know what he did with the rest of his days. He said he was a bodybuilder. Okay. I didn't see any shows that he'd been to. I wasn't invited to any, but this entire relationship was probably like a month. He said he had things that he was doing in New York, but funnily enough, I wasn't invited to any of them. All of these are red flags that I paid attention to after. I did not pay attention to it when it was going on. So I was in school. I was still in school at this time. So for me, it was like, okay, he says he's busy during the day. I never checked. I never got any proof of anything. I'm just like, oh, he said he's busy. He's busy. And I just let it be. In the evenings when he wasn't free every evening, but every so often when he would come out, he'd make sure we went somewhere. Now that I'm older, I realize that he actually wasn't spending that much money. It just seemed that way. And since he knew everybody, he was probably being comped. I know that now. I did not know that then. Because back in the day, until you're in the entertainment industry and you understand that people actually get a lot of these things for free, you're actually thinking the person is paying for it, and you realize without realizing that they're not. That there are a lot of ways, creative ways, that you can get things for free. I did not know this then. So it seemed like he was doing his own thing. And then I think we had one serious conversation where he said, he had this offhand way that he said, people don't save money these days. Like, it's his personal pet peeve. That was how he said it. That he has this personal pet peeve. People don't save money. And in my mind, I'm like, I save money. Here I am trying to defend myself. He's like, no, you don't. You're just like any other female. You don't save. How much do you have in your savings? That was how I said exactly how much I had in my savings to the T. It wasn't a lot of money. It was only like $3,000. But I said it to the T in trying to defend myself. He had found out somewhere along the line that I had a soft spot for kids because I've always had that. So he then says, on his next trip, first he said he was moving back to New York City, and we had gone. That was the first time I went into the Trump Plaza because all the apartments that are on the West Side Highway that were condos, they were still brand new back then. That he was looking into one of them. So that means that he had a friend that was a realtor. But I also realize nowadays that you can get a realtor to show you stuff easily. Back then, it was even easier. You didn't even have to show proof of income or anything. If you said you wanted to see an apartment, they showed it to you. But to me, I was still very green. I'd only been a couple of years I'd only been in this country a couple of years. So I'd never seen an apartment that fancy. So to me, it seemed like, oh my God, this dude is trying to move to New York City. He's trying to buy an apartment. He's telling me that, even though now that I'm older, I realize it was fast. In 3 weeks, he was trying to tell me that, we are going to move into this place together. And I was going along with it after 3 weeks. Don't ask me what I was thinking because, as I said, it all sounded great. Then he now said he started to complain about something. In between us going to dinner, me thinking the places were fancy, now that it was probably, if my memory serves right, probably Olive Garden, but I'd never been to Olive Garden. So to a person that had never been, it seemed fancy. It's not. I don't think I've been there in 2 decades now. But my point is, the things that I thought were fancy back then really weren't. Let's continue. Somewhere along the line, I said this before, he found out that I liked kids. So he said he was doing some shopping for a charity that he was involved in. So, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. You're so sweet, blah, 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 blah. Not connecting the fact that it's because I said I liked kids, that we were having a random conversation that was the charity that he probably picked. So we're in a store. It was not a big store either. It wasn't a Toys R Us or it wasn't a Macy's. It was just a small store in Brooklyn that sold kids' clothes, and his card didn't go through. And so when his card didn't go through, he starts complaining and cursing. I'm just on the side, not like he's cursing at me, he's cursing at the person. And the woman in front is saying, like, you know what, I'm sorry that your card's not going through. The woman was young, and I didn't really pay attention to the dynamics because, again, that was how oblivious I was. But the point is that they were having a conversation. He's like, I'm sorry, our card machine's not working. And he had a flight to catch in literally like 2 hours or so. Fortunately, back then I had a Citibank account. So he says, he doesn't even say anything to me. The woman beside comes over to me and says, hey, do you want to go calm your boyfriend down that he's really upset? I'm like, oh, what's going on with him? So then I'm involved in this situation, and they're telling me what's happening, that, he wanted to make this charge. He's trying to do this shopping. And for whatever reason, he makes it seem like time is of the essence. He has to do it right now. And so, of course, I then offer, silly me, I offer to pay. He's like, I'll get it back to you. I'm like, sure. Silly me, even sillier. I pay again in cash. She tried to run my card. My card didn't go through either. He's like, yeah, it just must be here. Why didn't it ever occur to me to tell him to go get the cash out of his account and myself? I have no idea. But Citibank was not too far. It was like maybe a block away. He claimed he didn't even say anything about his account. I had already offered that I would pay for it. And then when my card didn't go through, I also offered to go to the bank and go get the money. So I went to go get cash, all of my cash. To the T, the amount that they needed to clear this bill was exactly how much I had in my savings. It did not occur to me until afterwards. So I went to the bank, pulled out the cash, and gave it to them. They had all this stuff that they had put together, and he's like, okay, they put it in a corner, and they said he would send somebody to come and pick it up. That's how I left it. And then we said somewhere along the line, again, we had been hanging out off and on for maybe about 3 weeks. This is maybe the 4th week. So it didn't occur to me that he would disappear. He said he was getting on a flight. I usually, right at the airport, I would have heard from him because he used to do the whole, I've landed, I'm leaving. Yeah, I didn't hear anything after I had paid the $3,000 that was in my account. I tried the number when I thought he would be at the airport. It didn't go through. I tried the number again after I was in my mind. I'm like, oh, maybe he he was on the plane already. That's why the phone, because it went straight to voicemail. Maybe that's why the phone wasn't working. 2 hours later, I tried again. This time it says the number you're trying to call is disconnected. I'm like, oh, I tried. It's still not hitting me at this point that this guy could have disappeared. I try later on that evening, because all of this is happening in the afternoon. I try later on that evening. I'm still getting the number you've called is disconnected. Then it hits me like, oh, shit. I don't know anything about this person. I don't know anything. And this man is taking my $3,000 and gone. I go back to the store. The girl that I had seen in the store was not the girl that was there anymore. I asked whether they picked anything up. Of course, because there was a different person. That person then says to me that she does not know what I'm talking about because she was not the one that was there when I came. This is not the same day, the following day. So it's like it never happened. It only happened in my mind. But I sat down and I thought to myself, I'm like, I thought I was smart. How the hell did this just happen to me? That's literally the first thing. But immediately I started to process it back because all of this is happening within a 4-week span, 4 weekends, like kind of weekend, because those long weekends probably he'd arrive on Thursday and leave like Sunday. As far as I know, he could have even been living in Brooklyn and I just didn't pay attention and just didn't know. I never took him to the airport. He just said he was from Atlanta and I assumed that he was. I took everything at face value. Why am I bringing this story up? I sat down. Seriously, I sat down. I was pissed, but it was money. And I've always had that attitude about money, that money is meant to be spent. If I made it, I will make it again. So I wasn't even too pissed about the money. But in my mind, I was just thinking to myself, like, I thought I was sharp. What the heck did I just do? And I literally systematically panned out all of my mistakes. I never made that mistake again. Nobody's ever, if I gave you money, it was because I really wanted to give you money. I'm not giving anybody, from that I learned, I'm not giving anybody money that I actually want to get back. If I've given you something, I've already let it go. I'm not, if it's a loan and you think you're going to give it back to me, if you give it back to me, hey, great. But if I loan you money at all, it's because I've already, I could conveniently give you that amount of money. That was one thing I took from it. 2, I'm not helping anybody. A situation that you said you wanted to do, you should be able to figure it out. There is no time sensitivity to a charity. Think about it. Now that I'm older, I mean, even after that, I know better. What was the time sensitivity? Oh, you had to get the kids. The kids don't know you're going to give them anything. So what's the rush? But I fell for all of it. If I had held on to just that experience alone and the fact that, somebody I was crushing on or liked scammed me out of my $3,000. Again, remember, it might not seem like $3,000 is not a lot in today's money, but back then, for a 25-year-old, that was all I had. That was a lot for me, and it was a lot in that era. So, as far as I was concerned, I was just like, first I gave props in my head, like, nice move, but what the hell were you thinking? And then I just proceeded to make sure that I'm never going to make that mistake again. A lot of us do not do that. If you date somebody and the person is wrong, did you look at the fact that that person might be the wrong one? And like, yeah, you made that mistake, just don't make it again. It doesn't mean that love in itself is wrong. It doesn't mean like having a crush on someone is bad. It doesn't mean that liking somebody is bad. But what you allowed to happen, that you were not paying attention to the signs, that's what you need to pay attention to make sure you don't do it again. I say it often, how you treat that first instance that anything happens to you sets the path for everything else. The first time someone does anything to you, whatever you do, even with kids, it sets the foundation. How I've learned to deal with problems, again, we go back to one of the things I talked about before, a superpower of mine, is that I'm automatically thinking of a solution. What did I do wrong here? I'm not, because the person is gone, so I can't even talk about you, but what did I do wrong to allow this to happen to me? And that's where we go back to this whole initial title that we have of disloyalty and betrayal. How are we processing our part that we played in it? Sometimes somebody's going to cheat on us. There might be an element of some truth to what he's saying. Like, yeah, you might not take care of yourself. You might not be the best in bed. You might not be the cleanest person. I mean, there's a long list of things that turn people on and off. I am not saying that makes it right for anybody to cheat on you. But, just like I talk about this scamming incident of mine that happened to me personally, I do see where I was gullible. I do see the part that I played there. I do see how I was so stupid, but I did not say that makes me stupid for my entire life. I took my lessons, I took my L's, as they like to say, and I kept it moving, and I turned those to W's. I didn't take it on board and think that everybody's a scammer. That was a very unique situation that emptied out my account. I made the money back. I moved on. And then I kept my eyes peeled, but I also forgot about him. That's why there's certain details about him that I don't remember. I forgot about him, but I never forgot the lesson I learned. That's what you've got to do too. Friends will betray you. Friends will be disloyal. Spouses will do things that will mess you up, and you feel like, oh my God, that's your entire life. They are not those two people or whoever that group of people were that hurt you. That is not the entire world. There are still so many amazing people out there. Take what you can from the situation and move on, knowing that there is happiness just right around the corner for you. But you do need to take the lessons, or else you're going to make the mistake again and again. That's the difference between saying that, you know what, woe is me, and I did this, and this is my fault, and actually turning it around and saying, you know what was a lesson that I needed to learn here? Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode of Deliberately Intentional. I hope that today, if anything, my story teaches you how to not let things stick with you. I've had a lot of traumas, and I've turned all of my traumas around. I refuse to let them define my life, and you shouldn't let your trauma define your life either. I'll catch you again next week. Bye, everyone.